Hi, I'm Don Moxley from Spermidine Life. I'm the director of applied science. I'm the science guy. And if you want to learn more about some nutritional supplements to help you live longer and healthier, come see us at the Hack Life podcast.
I'm here with Don Moxley, the director of applied science at Longevity Labs. Don, welcome to the show, man.
I am excited to be here, Joel. Thanks.
I am too, and nobody knows this, but I'm gonna just say it. This is like, we had some technological issues the last couple of days, and it's
let's be clear.
We've been able to laugh.
Let's be clear. I've had some technological issues for the last day, but we finally got it worked out. And that's what happens when you have boomers on your show. I'm old enough to still be a boomer, so that's the challenge to get.
That's right. But that's impossible because we're going to talk a lot about spermidine today. And for people that don't know, that is an anti-aging supplement.
Yep.
And I'm sure you're taking it, so you're aging backwards. But before we jump into spermidine and all its benefits, I'm just curious, what was your background and how did you get started with this?
So my background, I was trained as an exercise physiologist. I've spent 25 of the last 35 years as either an adjunct or an assistant professor teaching the exercise sciences at different schools. Now, while I've also spent a lot of time in the classroom, I have spent a lot of time in industry, either looking at technologies. I worked for Polar, the heart rate monitor company, for about 8 years. I go back and forth between academics and industry. And then along the way, I also have a pretty good stable of elite athletes that I've worked with. Anywhere from a couple guys that played for the Bulls back with Jordan, all the way into in 2015 through 18, I was a sports scientist at Ohio State, working with their wrestling program. And the last year I was there, we measured 3.5 million data points on a wrestling team. Now, out of that, and this is what really caused the transition to where I'm at now, out of that was I was invited to Ohio State. Was not crazy about me being there. I was doing some things that didn't fit their dogma of how they ran systems. And I'm always asking questions. That's part of dealing with me. And it was not a comfortable place. And I was invited to leave that, and I was invited to go work in the cannabis industry down in Florida. And that was a unique thing because when the work that we did at Ohio State, we really established HRV, heart rate variability, as a tool that we could use to predict performance. We could prescribe workload. We could monitor athlete performance with. And through a couple relationships I had, well, it turns out when you look at cannabis and the endocannabinoid system, HRV may just be a measurement of endocannabinoid status, or certainly it's a big part of it. So I go work in cannabis for a while. So I leave Ohio State and I go sell weed in Florida, and build a medical brand down there in the cannabis industry. And I get a call one day from a friend of mine that I worked with down there, and he says, "Hey, do you know this term autophagy?" And I said, "Well, I have a passive understanding of it. It's not, I don't have a deep understanding yet." And he said, "Have you ever heard of this term spermidine?" And I said, "Nope, never heard that one." And he sent me some information. And I started to dig in on this, and I'm like, okay, there's something here. This is legit. There's a lot of good science here tied to the longevity play. And they said, hey, we need someone to come do science for us and help us build a scientific brand. And that's how I go from exercise scientist, exercise physiologist, to talking to you today about spermidine and its role in longevity and health.
That's awesome. Man, and I can't wait. Now I just want to know if there's any athletes you have on spermidine or spermidine. But
I'm struggling. It's not the athletes; it's the athletes' parents that benefit from spermidine. That's the place. Now, we're starting to do some work. It's interesting to look at spermidine as one of the things that we see with spermidine is that if you have inflammation, if your body is inflamed, there's usually low autophagy, and we know spermidine drives autophagy. So there's some evidence that would suggest that if you're dealing with arthritises, inflammatory responses, overtraining responses, there may be a reason to use spermidine as part of your stack in order to alleviate some of these inflammatory responses.
Amazing. So let's backtrack. What is spermidine for everybody that doesn't know? Like, what is it? And yeah, who discovered it?
Okay, so spermidine is a molecule that's in every cell of your body, men, women, plants, and animals. And what we know about spermidine is it decreases with age. But people who live well into their 90s and hundreds have spermidine levels similar to those in their 30s. So this was the first epidemiological data that we started with. It was first described in the late 1700s. The father of microbiology, a guy by the name of Anton von Leeuwenhoek, who invented the first single lens microscope, is the first person to ever describe a crystalline structure in semen. Now, listen, I mean, as I read the story, I think, what kind of a freak is this guy? He gets the microscope,
Seriously.
and they call him the father of modern biology. And I'm thinking, no, his wife did the work on plants and the good stuff.
Yeah.
This guy was trying to see if his swimmers looked like him.
Exactly.
But then it got named. It took almost 200 more years for it to get named, and they just gave it the name based on it was associated with semen. Then in the 1970s and 80s, they started to look at the molecule as in some of the cancer pathways. Now it's important to note that autophagy, this process of cellular cleansing, they just gave a Nobel Prize in 2017 to the guy that really described the pathways in autophagy. So this is real cutting edge. That was a Japanese researcher. There's a guy in Graz, Austria, Dr. Frank Medeo, that was doing work on cellular senescence and cellular apoptosis. Senescence is like a zombie cell. Apoptosis is programmed cell death. So they were looking at senescent cells. They treated them with spermidine, and these cells became unsenescent. They went from being zombies to regular, performing cells. And this is where it really started. And Frank Medeo's work has then led to the work as spermidine as a longevity supplement. And there's a lot of great science on this. I mean, there's over 2,000 articles on spermidine in plants and animals. There's several hundred as spermidine in animals, model organisms, things like that. And we're really starting to build a stack or a portfolio of articles, peer-reviewed research articles on spermidine in humans and its relationship to performance.
That's really cool. And then I know you mentioned semen, so is there if someone doesn't want to take a supplement, is there a way to get spermidine natural other than semen?
Well,
or would people even benefit from semen, by the way? I mean, that's a crazy question to ask, but
well, your challenge is when we look at spermidine content in semen, there's about 50 milligrams per liter of semen. Okay. So when you break that down, we supplement with 1 milligram to 6 milligrams, which is putting you from 40 ounces up to about a pint. Now, if you want to consume a pint of semen a day, that's on you. Let alone finding it. You have to go find a herd of contributors. But spermidine is found in a lot of other plants. We extract ours from wheat germ. But we extract ours from wheat germ in Europe. We currently can't find wheat in the United States that's spermidine rich enough for us to begin our extraction process. So how crops are produced. Now, have you ever heard of NATO?
Yeah.
It's a firm. Okay. Have you ever tried it?
No, it looks disgusting.
It's nasty. Okay. And unless you grow up in the Japanese culture, you can't choke this stuff down. So NATO is spermidine rich. There's some mushrooms, but your challenge on this, Joel, is that again, we can't find wheat in the United States that's spermidine rich enough for us to run our extraction process on.
Is that
So,
from all the
you know,
glyphosate? I mean,
now,
maybe you can't say it, but I mean, is that some theories?
well, the that's the other thing. I don't know if that's the reason for if glyphosate's the reason. We also know um, it's difficult to find glyphosate-free wheat germ. I mean, that's the other
Yeah,
problem there. You know, we get our wheat. You know, Europe is much more stringent on glyphosate. So and it frankly it's hard to get glyphosate completely free wheat anywhere in the world
yeah.
anymore. There's just you find trace amounts, um, and we find trace amounts in our product from time to time. So we have we pay close attention to that.
Yeah. Okay. So cool. So I can't go to my wife tonight and tell her what I'm gonna make you live longer. So okay.
No judgment here. I mean, you and your relationship, you guys got to figure that out for yourself.
Okay. Cool. So I'm curious though. Is it just that easy? I mean, just take a pill and I get all better, or like what are some of the things you guys are seeing in the field right now with people that are supplementing with spermidine?
Well, I'll tell you the thing that I'm most excited about is we just had a paper published about 6 weeks ago looking at dementia. So what we know is that when you supplement spermidine, um, not only does it get into your system cellularly, but it also crosses the blood-brain barrier. We've got a lot of evidence pointing to that, both in model organisms
Oh
and in
wow.
humans. But we have a dementia study showing people with dementia who supplemented spermidine, their dementia improved. And this is a double blind peer reviewed study. Um, when you start looking at aspects of dementia, Alzheimer's, a lot of the not neural diseases with aging, a lot of that looks like it could be autophagy related. And when you look at how you die as you get older, you look at cardiovascular disease, neural diseases, things like that, immune suppression. Um, Related to inflammation. Again, it's that if you have high inflammation, if you raise autophagy, inflammation comes down. There's actually some evidence when you look at those inflammatory molecules, pro-inflammatory cytokines or anti-inflammatory cytokines. There's some science that points to spermidine helps the polarization of those molecules, so they go from pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory. It's called an M2 cytokine. M1 to M2 cytokine. So that's some of the really exciting stuff
That's
that we're
very
seeing.
neat. And then, just speaking of the brain, I mean, have you seen or have parents or anybody said, wow, my kid's ADHD has vastly improved? Or I'm just curious.
We
Okay.
don't have that yet. Yeah, we don't have that yet. And frankly, listen, this product's been in the United States for just a little over a year. The majority of our market have been older adults, 50 to 70. Now we have a pretty significant biohacker community that has bought in. So we have customers that run from 25 to 95, but it's skewed towards that kind of 70-year-old median, 65 to 70
Yeah.
year old median. Um, we don't have that data yet. And listen, Joe, we're a scientific company. I'm not going to talk about something until we have the science to back it
Very
up.
nice. Um, are there, you've mentioned autophagy several times so far. So I'm just curious, is there a more beneficial way to supplement with spermidine? Should I be taking your product when I'm fasting? Will I get a bigger bang for my buck, or with food, or does it matter?
Well, so we don't have data that says taking spermidine at this time is better taking it at a different time. So I'll start with that statement. Theoretically, we think you should take it with food. The fats in food will help carry the molecules into the system. That's our recommendation. Remember, the default state mode of a cell is to be in autophagy. So if I take a cell and I pull back all of the nutritional inputs, okay, and so I don't have insulin like growth hormone, I don't have those inputs, the cell immediately goes into a high state of autophagy. as I add food to the environment, as I add calories, as I add proteins and carbohydrates, which are going to cause an increase in insulin and IGF, you're going to see that hit the cell, and you're going to start to see a down regulation of autophagy. Now, it doesn't turn off, it's just down regulated. And when we fast, what's happening with the fast, we're raising the level of autophagy because we're removing those nutritional inputs that suppress
Yeah.
autophagy. Does that make sense? Now we can come in with what's called calorie restriction mimetics, things that mimic calorie restriction, and spermidine is one of those. So when we add spermidine to the cell, we see an upregulation of autophagy, and that can happen with or without fasting.
That's pretty cool. And then, I mean, I know we talked offline about it, but just based off of just what you're saying, I mean, I would imagine people in the weight loss community would benefit from supplementing this. I mean, I know you can't say right now, but just based on some of the science,
Yeah.
there, it would seem to help.
Listen. I am not pro weight loss. Okay. I personally think you should take your scale
Love
and
that.
throw it away. No one takes a picture of their scale and hangs it on the wall and says, wow, goal achieved. Okay. The thing that we put on our wall are pictures of events in our life. And so I want people to engage in behaviors that lead to life events. And if we do enough of those, the scale will take care of itself. Okay. And so I really try to focus on what are the key behaviors in longevity: exercise, eating clean food, getting great sleep, and getting light, good light. There's good light, there's dirty light. So I think I call them the four big rocks in my longevity jar. And then the jar is your purpose. What is your purpose? What are you working for? And in the absence of a jar, you got no place to put the rocks, right? In the absence of a purpose, you don't have a reason to exercise. You don't have a reason to eat well. You don't have a reason to get sleep. This is the point. So, you know, if right now you're thinking about weight loss as a goal, I would encourage you to take a step back and say, hey, what's my purpose? Why do I want to be healthy? And then engage in those four big behaviors: exercise, eat clean food, sleep, get your sleep fixed, and get light, early light in the morning, turn the dirty light off at night, get the light fixed. And I'm just not a weight loss guy.
You're speaking my language, brother. I always tell people we don't lose weight to get healthy. We get healthy and then you lose weight. So
It goes. And you know
I
what?
never worry about the schedule.
You can be very healthy and big. Okay. Now, again, it's about the behavior. It's not about the scale. Okay. If
Yes.
if you're exercising, if you're getting clean food, if you're sleeping well, if you're getting the right light, you can be very healthy regardless of what the scale says. And you can do some fairly toxic things to yourself that will affect the scale and shorten your life. And that's no one's making that trade.
Love it. Love that. Hey, I'm curious. I know I've seen another brand out there, and I don't remember what they're called, that they
Mm-hmm.
also make spermidine. Is there anything that makes Spermidine Life by longevity different or unique?
Spermidine Life is the original, and we're not only the original, but we are the original that's being extracted directly from plants. We're getting a whole plant extract in our spermidine. And again, I'll let the market decide. We've won several awards for leading product development, leading product. When you look at the research quoted by competitors, they're all quoting our research. They're all quoting stuff that's done by Frank Medeo and Tobias Eisenberg and Guido Kramer. And now, we have David Sinclair on our advisory board. So we're starting to look
Nice.
at spermidine performance in his lab at Harvard. Our advisory board stands by itself. I'm good with that.
Yeah. They're
Hey,
just,
listen, here's the other side of this, Joel. My dad taught me a long time ago: pissing on someone else's campfire doesn't make yours burn any brighter. So I'm going to concentrate on our campfire, and I'll let the market make the choice.
that's the best way to do it. Yeah. You guys have an abundance mindset. So nothing, like you said, nothing else
And
matters.
And you know what? If someone comes into the market and they do a great job, good for them. Um, I'm pretty sure we won't be able to process enough spermidine to supply the world. Okay, we're getting it started. I sure hope someone growing wheat in the United States recognizes an opportunity here. And I don't know how they grow it or how they grow spermidine rich wheat. I listen, hopefully we grow this market and everybody benefits from it.
Now, when people are taking this product, I think you guys recommend that they do. Am I correct that they do a 3-month subscription because that's like the best way to kind of see the benefits? It's really
Well,
hard.
what we see is this: is that if you purchase our product across our website in the marketing, and I'm not doing as many of these calls now as I was, but you'll be invited to have a phone call with someone from our company. And I've talked to hundreds of our customers. And so the question is when I start taking spermidine, what do I expect to see? Well, the number one response is in 3 to 5 weeks, people notice that their nails start growing, their hair gets better, and their skin is better. Because one of the benefits of upregulated spermidine performance is an upregulation of epithelial stem cells. These are the stem cells that eventually become your skin cells, that become your nail and hair cells. This is not something, this is not like caffeine. You take it, it hits a receptor and it lights you up, right? Or THC or CBD or any of those nervous system. This is working down in the cell, and it takes a while to build up. So, and the other thing that people notice early on, 3 to 5 weeks, is a change. If you measure sleep, we have a lot of Aura Ring users who have come to us and said, "Listen, I saw a 15-point increase in my HRV."
Wow.
Now, well, I'm not ready. Listen, that's what someone told me. I'm not ready to put that on our marketing material, right? But we do see a fairly consistent increase in the quality of deep sleep, percentage of deep sleep, and a little bit of an HRV bump, which would make sense with the science.
Now, okay, epithelial. When you said that, the first thing that came to my head, and I know it's completely different, but I was thinking endothelial, like blood vessels
Yeah,
and the heart.
right.
And so then I was thinking, hey, have you seen
Well,
anything?
we've got
Go ahead.
we've got good stuff there too. We've got good stuff there too. So when you, if someone really, if you're a scientist, you really want to get into this. There is a article it's from by Cell Review.
Okay.
It's called "Spermidine in Health and Disease." It's written by Frank Medeo and Tobias Eisenberg and Guido Kramer, the same people that are on our advisory board. But there's 5 big benefits. So it spends time. What is spermidine? Where does it come from? How is it produced? I mean, again, at a real high scientific level, they do a really nice job. But the 5 benefits are increased autophagy. There's an increase of performance of heart tissue and the endothelial. We see a nitric oxide upgrade. So we see a drop in blood pressure in some of the model organisms that we work with. So we see that. We see an immune response improvement, epithelial stem cells, and what am I missing? Oh, neural
Oh,
performance.
wow.
Taking a look at, again, so those are the 5 key elements they talk about in spermidine and health and disease.
That's huge. And so, one of the big things you said too is that it's going to quell inflammation. And as we know, the last 2 years we've been in this thing that a pandemic, I guess they call it. So,
Right.
have you seen anything in your research with COVID?
Yes. So we actually have a paper that was published in March, that they took a look at human immune cells and they treated them with spermidine, and spermidine stopped the transmission of COVID 85, 90, 92% of the time.
Holy cow.
We have a study going on in England right now where they're looking at the immune response to people who get the jab and people who get the jab with spermidine. So when you look at the COVID virus and how it works, there's a couple places where when it gets into the cell, it really messes with the autophagy machinery. That number one of the ways the virus reproduces is so in autophagy. When we have the autophagy signal, you got a part of your cell that's called the endoplasmic reticulum. And the endoplasmic reticulum spins off and creates a barrier that encapsulates things in the cell, like old proteins or old organelles. Well, the virus uses this to duplicate. Um, and so it upregulates that. So you see an increase of that. But also in the autophagy pathway. So the way autophagy normally works, that it's called an autophagome, that double layered membrane encapsulates whatever it's trying to get rid of. It bonds to an organelle called the lysosome. The lysosome is like full of stomach acid. And when it bonds, it digests the stuff, and it's called, at that time it's called an autolysosome. Digests, and that puts it back into the cytosol of the cell to use. Well, COVID interferes with that lysosome autophagome bonding. But if you have upregulated autophagy, it will finish. We have multiple autophagy pathways. With immune autophagy, there's a trigger of immune response, okay? But there's also this autophagy machinery. So it makes a lot of sense that as you upregulate autophagy with spermidine and cysteine and things like that, you're going to deal with the virus much more effectively.
That is amazing. That's some really cool stuff right there.
There's some good science there. It's pretty cool. In fact, this stuff's happening day by day. I mean, I just got an article this morning on COVID and autophagy, and we're putting all the pieces together. But yeah, it's exciting. Listen, Joel, I don't know where you're at on COVID. In my life,
just so you know.
Okay,
I'm a biohacker.
My brother
I'm
passed
a natural
away.
Health guy. That's you know where I'm at.
Yeah. My brother passed away from COVID a month ago.
Sorry.
Now he had a very his immune system he had an autoimmune situation, and it's challenging. I think we have to have compassion for people. There's a lot of people that don't quite understand. And you know what? If this does anything, here's what COVID has done for us: is COVID is a viral pandemic that landed on top of a metabolic pandemic. And if you'll take the time to pay attention to your metabolism and upregulate these kids, you know what? You're not nearly as vulnerable to any of the viruses. But you know what? Not everybody's there, right? There's some people there's people that we live with that are humans that we love, that we may need to help around the corner. We just need to support them as we work our way through this. There's going to be a time when this virus is endemic in the population. And I don't know if it'll take 10 years or I don't know how long it'll take, but it'll be like the cold virus. But along the way, we're going to lose people. My 25-year-old nephew just came off of a respirator up in Detroit 3 days ago. 25-year-old kid, college athlete, Division I college athlete. His priest came in and read his last rites to him. Now, he got through it. He made it to it. Listen, you can call it what you want. It's the COVID virus. And it hits different people differently. So I think it's important that we have compassion. And I think as we move through, let's do our best to help. Listen, I consider myself an exercise professional. And frankly, exercise professionals have failed with a capital F. We've been talking about fitness and what you should do. I mean, listen, the movement started in the late 60s. I was part of it beginning in the 80s, and we still don't have enough people moving enough that when we land a viral pandemic on top of us, it takes out 700,000 Americans. We still have to be compassionate and understand that people come at this from different directions and do our best to help.
Don, thank you. Are there any testimonials that just stick out in your head that are just really like, whoa, that's amazing?
Well, I'll tell you the thing that I've been most excited about. So we started this company in the middle of the COVID outbreak. I mean, we didn't have a company meeting, so we all get hired, and we're meeting like you and I are talking right now for the first 6 months. So we start this company and we start rolling it out, and we've now just started to attend trade shows. We were in Orlando a couple weeks ago at Dave Asprey's show. I was in Miami last weekend at the Biohacker Congress. And what's really exciting, and I've never experienced this before, but we have people come to us and like, I've been using your product for 3 months. Oh my God. There is a passion coming emoting from some of these people that just is really exciting. We're really early in this, and but it looks like this is a unique molecule. It looks like listen, even a blind squirrel trips over a nut every once in a while, right? So we've got an opportunity that we've tripped across this molecule that's really interesting, and it's going to
Yeah, it
be it's
is,
going to be
and
good for
and
people.
it's gonna do a whole lot of good. Just thank God you did launch in the pandemic. I think it's almost serendipitous, right? Like this is the calling that we needed. Yeah.
We had to figure it out. Listen, I love challenges. I love change. Um, I tell people I love being in a river full of rapids that you have to run with. You can't stop it. You can't stay in place. You've got to move. And that's what we've had to do. I think I've said this before. If you're doing business the same in 2022 that you were doing in 2019, you really missed an
Yep.
opportunity to learn and improve. That the world gave us a chance to let's look at what we're doing to see do we need to change,
Yep.
and so I think you got to do
Hey,
that.
any exciting projects that you guys are working on? I mean, you guys got a lot going on.
We've got some new products releasing. So we've got some products releasing in November. We have what's called Spermidine Life Immune and Spermidine Life Memory. So we've got Spermidine Life packaged with some other products to help in those particular areas with memory and immune system. And then we've got a product releasing shortly thereafter. It's called Pro. It's only going to be for sale through physicians or licensed practitioners. And it's a
Oh,
6 milligram a day product. So our current product is 1 milligram a day, but we have a lot of people taking more than that. And this is what Spermidine Life looks like. This is the bottle. So 2 tablets is 1 milligram a day, but we're releasing a 6 milligram a day product
that's
that we're
awesome. That's
really
exciting.
excited about.
Hey, I'm getting ready to, I think, jump into some lightning round questions. But before I do that, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
No, I
Okay.
think we're good. Not really.
Yeah. So,
I love this. So
all right.
let's go lightning
Perfect.
round before my computer
Okay.
runs out of juice.
If the old you could see the new you, what would the new you say?
Hmm.
Yeah, if the old
What would the
you
old me
could see the
say?
new you, what would the new you say to that person? So if you were looking back at your old self, what would you tell them?
Um, Start operating via mission rather than definition. When I left Ohio State, it was really hard for me. I defined myself as an exercise physiologist, which meant I was either teaching or coaching or something like that. I took a step back and said, okay, what is my mission? And I defined my mission as helping individuals understand change and how to make changes that lead to the alleviation of suffering and the betterment of well people. That's kind of my personal mission statement. And I feel like if I had started that earlier, I would have been able to impact more people. But I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed. I wake up in the morning. I'm one of those people that wake up in the morning and I make up my mind that I'm going to like what I do, and I do what I like. Um, and I've had the opportunity to. I love to learn. I love to teach. I love this in my mind. This is teaching. Um, and so I would say I'd probably shift to mission driven rather
Yeah,
than
totally get that.
definition
I love that.
earlier.
What are some choices that you made that you think made you who you are today?
Choices I made. I don't know if it's a choice that I made, but I'll tell you. I grew up with parents that basically taught us that we have no limits. If you want it, go for it. There's nothing keeping you from being
Love
there.
that.
Do the hard work. You can get there.
Yeah.
That was a
And
real
then you
benefit.
guys are doing, yeah, love that.
Pretty fearless.
And then,
Be
you
fearless.
guys are obviously doing some amazing things in the health and wellness and biohacking space. I'm curious, who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Smart people inspire me. This has been one of the fun things about this job is I'm interacting with some of the smartest people I've ever worked with in my life. Some of the doctors that are working in this functional health space, they are brilliant, and they've broken away from the classic medical system, and they're redefining medicine. And I think there'll be a point in the future when there's two pathways in medicine. There's the injury or the diagnosis treatment system that's funded by insurance, and then there's going to be this enhanced performance system, biohacker system that you then own. I think the sooner someone can own that and say, I need to, I'll own my own health. I mean, when you own your own investments, when you own your own house, when you own, when you get this in under your own umbrella, and when health and performance
Amen
becomes
to that,
part
brother.
of that, life gets better.
I'm a big reader. Any books?
Yeah.
Are there like any books that stand out in your mind that had a huge impact in your life that you'd recommend other people read?
I consider the most important book I ever read called Flow, Flow, The Psychology of the Optimum Experience by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Um, it's the psychology of enjoyment. Okay. Now, that work, he's an emeritus scholar now. That work has been taken over by, there's a
Yeah.
researcher, there's a writer by the name of Stephen Kotler. Stephen's an 8-time New York Times bestseller. We've gotten to be friends. I love his books. I'm working on his The Art of the Impossible right now. The Rise of Superman and Stealing Fire, both great books. I'll tell you the book that I just read recently that I freaking love is The Immortality Key, the
Oh, I
story of
haven't heard of
religion
this.
with no
Okay,
name.
awesome. I'll
Oh,
pick that one up.
awesome. It it is it is
The
an it
fact
is
that
a
you could
great book. I
say the
love it.
author, I know who the author is that you said of Flo. I couldn't say his name. Yeah, no, not Kotler. Flo. Yeah. The
Kotler.
fact that you could say that guy's name
Oh,
so eloquently
Csikszentmihalyi.
just says it all.
Yeah,
That you,
that's what happens when you teach. So I've been teaching flow. Listen, as a physiologist, I can't get you to change your behaviors until I change the way you think about your behavior. Okay. So when I'm doing things, no one's going to come back and repeatedly do something that sucks. I have to turn it into enjoyment. And you've got to create a flow state while you're doing that. That's critical. Clear goals and feedback, concentration on the task in hand, merging of action and awareness. These are all key elements to designing a flow state. And I think as a leader, whether you're leading a company or leading an exercise group or leading a bunch of kids, you know, you
yeah.
you have to, flow has to be
You
a key
know,
element of what you do.
obviously we were talking about spermidine and a little bit about biohacking. Are there any rituals or hacks or practices that you do on a regular basis?
Yeah, a
Nice.
little bit. Now, my camera, so that's my sauna. um, that sits behind me in my office. So exercise, Joel, I had a knee surgery.
Fun.
I had my seventh knee surgery a year ago in September. Now, I hadn't had a knee surgery prior to that for 27 years. I had five while I was in school. I had one more after that, and I developed loose bodies in my knee that I had to get taken out. We were hiking. We were in Colorado up on the Loveland Pass, about 12,500 feet, and I'm hiking and my knees locking up. I've got stuff going into I had to get them taken out. Well, I got a MRSA infection.
Oh,
So September and October, I was in bed with an IV antibiotic and eating about 7 Percocets a day. I was in really bad shape. But I got through it. November, I start rehabbing. Um, I went out and rode so the day before I had surgery in September, I'd ridden my bike for about 100 miles. My main exercise modality is riding my bicycle. I love to do that.
yeah.
Um, I've not been able to ride my bike really for a year. So I went out and rode 40 minutes. So I have to find other hacks for my fitness. So I'm using sauna. I use a lot of blood flow restriction training. I don't know if you've talked about that on your podcast yet,
I have
but I'm
not,
using
but I like.
BFR. It's a wonderful modality, um, and um, and lift weights and things like that. So those are my real hacks.
That's awesome. And then just one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. 2020 was a
Okay.
crazy year. We were just talking about it earlier, the pandemic. I like to reframe things though, because it took a toll on people. But let's reframe it. 2020 was the greatest gift because dot dot dot.
It blew up your models. Okay. If you were listen, this is red pill, blue pill stuff, right? If you were just kind of going through the matrix, you know what? 2020 blew it up. You had to decide to
Yeah,
take the red pill and figure out what's going on and how are you going. And listen, this is hard to do. And you know what? You and I are blessed from the standpoint that we've been given the opportunity to do the things that we've done and to be in a position to be able to make those kinds of choices. Not everybody has that opportunity.
yeah, good point.
We've had it, and now I think it's important to pass that on. But 2020 reframed the entire. It blew up your models, and not only can you not do what you've been doing, and it's not over yet. Okay, this supply chain stuff that's going on. You look at unemployment. There's a lot of people that were just going through life, going to work every day, coming home. They can't go to work, and now it's time to go back. Maybe I don't want to go do that job. Maybe I don't have to go do that job. Maybe I can do something different.
Yeah,
That's someone who takes the red pill and makes the decision. I'm going to fight the matrix a little bit. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to bounce
yeah,
forward. People talk about bouncing back. I think about bouncing forward. And listen, would you and I be doing this podcast had 2020 not happened?
probably not. Yeah,
Probably not. Probably, so
yeah.
thank you,
Thank
2020.
you. I love that. Last but not least, Don Moxley from Spermidine Life. Where can people find you?
So you find Spermidine Life at www.spermidinelife.us. If you go to .com, that's our Austrian site. .us is our American site. So SPERMIDINELIFE, spermidinelife.us. You can find Don Moxley on all the social medias. My handle is Don Moxley on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. And I'm not a Facebook guy. I use it mainly for family stuff. I'm not a great Instagram guy. If you want to see the science, get on my Twitter feed.
Beautiful.
Twitter's typically where I push the science and things like that through. I've just not figured out how to do visually in Instagram what I do with from a copy standpoint in
Yeah,
Twitter. So that's where you find me.
beautiful. Don, thanks for being on the show, brother.